It's time to talk about the downfall of The Witcher, and not the games. I still have more hours banked into Wild Hunt than any other game I own. We're talking about the TV show. Will I be watching it? No. Is it because Henry left and now it's Liam? Weirdly, also no. It's because the showrunners, they don't understand how to respect source material. And that is absolutely the reason. So Game of Thrones, if we go on a little bit of a tangent, it wasn't just a TV show. It was like the TV show of 2010. It basically dragged fantasy onto the small screen kind of the same way that Lord of the Rings did for movies. And for a while, I don't think anything could touch it. It took other networks and streamers a bit to kind of catch up, but by late 2010s, basically every man and his dog was cooking up some big fantasy series, ready to swoop in once Thrones wrapped up with the final season that must not be named. Anyway, out of that whole pack of contenders, one that really made the most noise, for better or for worse, was Netflix's The Witcher. So Netflix, it brought in Henry Cavill, right? Superman, the master of franchises, our king of Warhammer. And he was cast to lead The Witcher. And honestly, perfect casting. Season 1 hit. Everyone watched it. You know, that bard song, it was stuck in our head for weeks. Toss a coin to your... and Netflix was strutting around like, yep, we've done it. We've got our Game of Thrones now. But a few years and 3 seasons later, not so much. The buzz died down, Cavill's on his way out, and instead of being Netflix's crown jewel, The Witcher ended up looking more like a missed shot. If anything, it gave The Witcher a tiny dent in their, like, we know what we're doing armor. So if we rewind time a little bit, we're going to go back to 2017. Netflix pipes up and says, right lads, hi. We're making a show out of The Witcher. And people were excited because we've got shelves of books and short stories to mine from, plus a ready-made fan base that already knows what a drowner is without having to Google it or, God forbid, ask ChatGPT to analyse it. And let's not forget the gamers, right? By then, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt was basically, still is, the crown jewel of gaming. I am slightly biased because I do love The Witcher so much. But anyway, you know, the one that you tell your partner, I'm just gonna play it like 1 more hour, babe, 1 more hour, only to resurface 3 weeks later, muttering about Gwent cards and side quests. This thing, it sold over 50 million copies and it even won Game of the Year. Rightly so. Then, in September of 2018, Netflix dropped the big casting bomb. Henry Cavill was going to be Geralt, and honestly, the timing, it couldn't have been better. He just crushed it in that Mission Impossible movie. He had the moustache, he had the biceps that were just reloading. Anyway, it was probably his best outing yet. And he was technically at that time still Superman, which meant that his nerd cred was just maxed out. If you're a nerd, Cavill, he's basically the poster boy for us, right? He's the guy who's got it all. He even bloody has a great barbecue, right? He's like a Greek statue, but he knows the difference between 40k and Age of Sigmars. So the show itself, it kicks off with 3 storylines, and they're all running at once. So first you've got Geralt of Rivia, which Henry Cavill in his full grumpy monster hunter mode, basically stomping around the continent, chomping up beasties for coin. Imagine a moody medieval pest control guy, but with nice abs and a sword that probably weighs more than your car battery. Then we have Yennefer of Vengerberg. Now she starts out with a rough hand in life, but after some magical nip and tuck at the cost of being able to have kids, she ends up a powerhouse sorceress and an unofficial royal advisor. Think of her as like the fantasy world's HR department, but she's glamorous and terrifying at the same time and always 2 steps ahead of you. And then finally, Ciri, Princess of Sintra, whose entire kingdom is getting wrecked, so she's out there on the run, discovering that she's got this like whole load of like scary power just bubbling inside her. She's basically Disney princess meets like nuclear reactor at the same time. Season 1, it keeps their stories kind of like mostly separate, like 3 different campaigns in a D&D group that can't get their schedules to line up. But it's all building toward them kind of finally crossing paths and then forming that classic, we're not related, but we're family now. And that team up anyway, that fans love. They love it in both books and the games. So season 1, it was kind of a mixed bag. People obviously loved Cavill, right? The man basically grunted his way into everyone's hearts. And Charlotte, as Yennefer, she was top tier. The fights, they looked great. The monsters, I thought they were cool. And you could tell Netflix had thrown like some serious cash at it at this point. The problem though, well, the story was a bit of a mess. All of those timelines, they had people pausing mid-episode, like, hold on, when is this supposed to be again? People were confused. It was ambitious, sure, but it also felt like they needed a giant like corkboard and some red string. You know, that gif, I need to find it just to keep track of it. Only the show, it wasn't giving what it promised. It was billed as like the big stew of politics, magic, sex, but what we mostly got was Geralt doing like Monster of the Week quests, like he was grinding XP. There was nudity. I mean, we're not all there for nudity, but we were kind of all there for nudity. There was vague mentions of kingdoms, but it wasn't quite like the epic that we wanted it to be. And then for those of us who are fans of the lore in the books, they were already cutting out like the best bits from the books. I don't know if you agree with me. Please let me know if you do. But the whole stories, like a shard of ice, were just gone. Even Geralt and Ciri's first meeting, which I think is kind of a massive deal, that got tossed aside. For book fans, it was a bit of a head-scratcher moment, I won't lie. Most people, they kind of just shrugged and were like, it's kind of only the first season. They'll get to it later. Spoiler, they didn't. If anything, it got further away from what made the books special in the first place. And then Netflix did one thing that you can't do this with a binge show, and they did it. They made people wait 2 years for season 2. Everyone ripped through season 1 in a weekend, and then we had to wait 24 months to forget half the characters' names. By the time season 2 rolled around in 2021, a lot of the hype had already like wandered off to like something else. I don't know. I didn't research enough to think about what was out at the time. But season 2 was where The Witcher, for me, really went off the rails. Instead of tightening things up, Netflix started tossing in like brand new plots. Fans were like, wait, what? Eskel getting like killed off? A completely made up villain called Voleth Mare. And yeah, it just didn't sit well. Like I said, for those of us who are fans of both the books and the games, we are the very people Netflix was banking on. We were peed off. Meanwhile, casual viewers, I think they barely noticed, but we did. Basically, it split the fan base in two. And I think that once that happens, it's tough to kind of glue that back together. Honestly, for me, the big problem with The Witcher from season 2 onward, as we're talking about season 2, is the writing. It's plain and simple. I don't care how much they drift. Well, I do care, but I don't, in this context, I don't care how much they drift from the books, because truth be told, I think without referencing them, because it has been a while since I've read them in much detail, my ADHD brain struggles to remember half the details anyway, but you can tell kind of like when they started to like make stuff up, because the quality drops. So like in season 1, the short stories they adapted, but they were mostly tight and sharp. Then you hit that like made up Doppler and Broccolin subplot, and then suddenly it felt like fan fiction kind of like stapled onto the real thing. And then by season 2, well, it was even worse. The original stuff the writers came up with just came across as like amateur hour. There were plot holes everywhere. There were massive ones that just broke the logic of the story and dialogue that made you go, wait, why would anyone say that? It stopped feeling like a carefully built fantasy world, and it started feeling like a generic TV writing, the kind you like half watch while you're scrolling on your phone and you're like, meh, I don't need to pay attention. And honestly, that's the kind of TV I avoid in the first place. Okay, my time on this earth is short. I don't want to watch crap TV, okay? After that, things got messy, like proper internet food fight messy. Fans started firing shots at the show, and then the show, that their team was taking jabs back, and it just turned into this really weird, long, ugly back and forth, like when they do those like pre-show fighting talk for the MMA, and then to like really pour petrol onto the fire. A former writer, Bo DeMeo, had a cool name, Mayo. I'm so sorry if I've butchered that name, Bo. I'm really sorry. Anyway, Bo pipes up in 2022 and claims that half the writer's room, they didn't even like The Witcher in the first place. Worse that, apparently they made fun. They made fun of the source material, which if it is true, and I know it's only speculation, but if that's true, that's basically the last thing you want to hear when your fan base already thinks you're butchering their beloved books and that you're assholes. You're now officially assholes. And Henry Cavill was kind of like, yeah, I'm done. I've had enough too. And honestly, at that point, it was kind of like Geralt just rage quit the campaign. Combine that with the whole "the writers don't like The Witcher" rumor, and then whatever goodwill was left just had gone. The haters, they were strutting around like they'd called it from day one, and the people still hanging on were kind of like, I'll just go back to watching Lord of the Rings instead because at least I can get good quality. Here's the thing: we have to talk about season 3 because we've talked about season 1 and 2, but where do you start? Do we bring up Yennefer's whole stab Ciri in the back, then fix it all with a rushed montage-style episode? Crap. All the fights where everyone suddenly decides to, like, cosplay anime characters, pausing, like, mid-duel to shout pep talks at their mates, while the bad guy just politely waits his turn. Honestly, half the time it felt like less like The Witcher and more like a bad cosplay skit at Comic-Con outside in the smoking area when they're filming it on their GoPro for TikTok. And just honestly, I don't even want to get started on the magic. In the books and the games, magic is just absolute chaos. Like, it's drop a battalion in a second powerful levels. But here, a couple of like foot soldiers with tiny arrows, they take out like whole mages guilds, while main characters are strolling around wrapped in plot armor thicker than Geralt's biceps. Then there's Rience, because Geralt literally had the chance to end this clown, sword in hand, portal waiting, and instead he's like, nah, I'm just going to break his hands and call it a day. Why? Probably because the writers needed him alive for another episode. And of course, we've got Codringer and Fen. They end up dying later because Geralt couldn't be bothered to do the easiest decapitation in history, like easier than Ned Stark at the beginning of Game of Thrones. Cheers, plot convenience. And the pacing. I mean, I'm not going to ramble on forever, but the pacing is like being shoved off a roller coaster mid-ride. One moment you're like, okay, this scene is all right, you know. And then next you're hurled into like a melodrama so hammy it kind of makes those daytime murder shows your gran watches like look subtle. Like, people have ranted about this for 1,000 times, so I'm not going to carry on. But is this a faithful adaptation? It's not even close. Is it a standalone fantasy show? Probably. Still, I would only give it a 3 out of 10 on a generous day. So I guess, like, I won't bring myself to watch season 4. I don't need a long drawn out conclusion for this one, but I do want to know what you think, and if you're going to watch it. If I was on the fence, I'm going to put the picture here, but those swords in the official stills would be enough reason for me to make a decision and turn my back for good. Anyway, I'm only going to implore you one time to please do all those things you need to do to support my tiny channel. This was more of a rant, wasn't it, this one? So let's just pretend we're ranting together and drop your thoughts in the comments, please, so that I need to see who's on team no for season 4, who's on team yes for season 4, and who's on team I really don't care. Why am I still here? Thumbs down this video. Anyway, I'm going to go.